Yep. But
is that fair to say?
Yes, but I think that the reason behind that is because those types of athletes, they get to come into an organization, they have the green light, and they can do whatever they want. Where that is very rare to get drafted and be able to control the whole system.
Right. Was CeCe making decisions like?
Yeah.
With it, yeah.
As she should.
No way.
As she should, but I also think that they. Go ahead.
That's crazy. I didn't realize that. She's just young. I just didn't think that.
But when you have a generational talent like that, she should have a lot to say of the system. I also think when you have
the Caitlyn or like a healthy LeBron, wherever they go.
Okay, so Sophie Cunningham just spoke her mind about Caitlin Clark and the Fever's offense. And guess what? She's getting absolutely slammed for it. Not just by general haters, but by Clark's own fans and people who say they want the Fever to win. The backlash is so wild. Some are even asking if Indiana will bring her back next season. All this over a compliment, over just stating the obvious. This whole situation shows you how telling the truth can become a real career threat in the WNBA. It also tells us a lot about who's really trying to control the Caitlin Clark story. Get ready, because you're about to see some receipts that might make you totally rethink what you know about this team.
I think what Sophie Cunningham is saying here about the Indiana Fever offense should be obvious. This should be how it is. If you're a Caitlin Clark, if you're a LeBron James, your system should, your basketball offensive system should run through that superstar. And Sophie Cunningham has come out and said such, and says that it was running through her. I guess when she was on the court. Now, we saw a few times where it looked like it was actually running through her. But we also saw times where it looked like it absolutely was not. She was playing off the ball way too much.
Look, here's the deal. Sophie simply said the offense should run through Clark. That's it. That's the super controversial statement that's somehow blowing up the internet. She even compared Clark to LeBron James, a generational talent who really runs the whole system. Sophie acknowledged that sometimes it looked like Clark was in control, and other times she clearly wasn't, playing way too much off-ball. Anyone who watched those games saw this with their own eyes, right? This isn't secret insider info. This isn't her spilling team secrets. This is just basic basketball reality. But somehow, pointing out this obvious fact caused a huge firestorm, and it really exposed something much deeper and darker brewing under the surface.
What? Why is this happening? And unfortunately, she's getting attacked from the haters and from some Caitlin Clark fans. Some Caitlin Clark fans. I don't know why. Some Caitlin Clark fans are saying, well, she shouldn't even say this out loud. And I'm like, but Sophie was on the team and knows what's going on. Everybody's got to ask for permission. I don't get that. I really don't. I think she's just stating something that we can all see with our own eyes if we're paying attention at all.
But here's the thing. The attacks came from two sides at once. You had the usual haters jumping in, which honestly, you'd expect. But then something really bizarre happened. Caitlin Clark's own fans, the very people who should be thrilled someone's defending their player, they turned on Sophie too. They started saying she shouldn't talk about this stuff publicly. They claimed she needed permission, that she was bringing unwanted attention to Clark. I'll explain why that reaction is so dangerous in a second. First though, you need to understand who these specific fans actually are. There's a small group of Clark supporters who also overlap with the old school WNBA fandom. This is the same crowd that's been gatekeeping this league for years. These are the people who hate any newcomers shaking up their established world, and they absolutely despise Sophie Cunningham for reasons that have nothing to do with basketball.
I think there is, and I've noticed this, there is a small group of Caitlin Clark fans and a small group of Indiana Fever fans that are anti-Sophie Cunningham fans. All right? By the way, they're part of the old WNBA fandom too. All right? I'm just pointing that out. And a lot of you fans know exactly what kind of fans those are and how they act. And then some just hate her because, well, for lack of a better way of putting it, Sophie's white and she's hot. I'm just being real. I'm just being real. So we're going to look at some of the hate. We're going to listen to the comments and then look at some of these attacks.
Now, let's just talk about the elephant in the room. Because pretending it's not there isn't going to make it disappear. Some people just hate Sophie because she's white and attractive. That's the uncomfortable truth. In a league where image and identity politics often dominate every single conversation, Sophie represents something certain groups just refuse to accept. She's outspoken. She's got a platform. She's building her own brand. And she's doing it all while being completely herself, unapologetically. That combination makes her a huge target. Not because she's done anything wrong, not because she's hurting the team, but because her very presence challenges a narrative that some people have built their entire identity around. Just watch how the hate shows up in the actual comments. They'll tell you way more than just simple disagreement.
But every other player on this team, none of them have physically stepped up. Physically stepped up. When something has went down on the court. When the drama started, Aaliyah Boston disappeared. They all disappeared. I mean, honestly. She says too much. She brought too much heat on Caitlin Clark. I knew she would when they announced she was coming to Indy. I want her to explore other opportunities next season. All I'm saying. I mean, it's crazy. On her podcast bullshit, ? She's so far up Caitlin's ass, it's just embarrassing. Like, sure, it's cool you love Cece as you should, but shut the fuck up about her business? Really? They play on the same team again. She's saying something that everybody knows.
I'm so sick of Sophie. Please get the hell on. She makes me wonder if the front office will call her back. She says too much and brought too much heat on Caitlin Clark with her antics. These aren't just random trolls, you know? These are people claiming to be Fever fans. People who supposedly want the team to win. Yet they're attacking the one player who literally stood up for Clark on the court. She was the only teammate who didn't vanish when things got violent. Remember when Chennedy Carter body-checked Clark? Where was everyone else? Or when Dejanai Carrington went after her? Who stepped up? When the drama exploded game after game, which teammate consistently had Clark's back? It was Sophie Cunningham, every single time. And now she's being told to shut up and go explore other opportunities.
Like, sure, it's cool you love Cece as you should, but shut the fuck up about her business? Really? They play on the same team again. She's saying something that everybody knows. This offense and this system should run through Caitlin Clark. She's a generational. She gave her a massive compliment. She mentioned her and LeBron in the same. I mean, honestly, think about that. We love Sophie, but just my opinion, but she should give it a rest and stop talking about what goes on in the Fever locker room and doing it for podcast clips.
And then there's this comment. She's so far up Caitlin's ass, it's embarrassing. Shut the fuck up about her business. That one got hundreds of likes. Hundreds of people agreed that a teammate shouldn't support another teammate publicly. They think praising Clark as a generational talent, or putting her in the same sentence as LeBron James, is somehow inappropriate. Think about what's really happening here. Sophie gave Clark a massive compliment. She advocated for the offense to revolve around her. She acknowledged Clark's unique abilities deserve unique treatment. And the response? Shut up about her business. They're on the same team. They share the same locker room. If Sophie can't talk about the Fever's offensive system, then who can? But here's what makes this whole thing even more twisted.
Come on, girl, stop it. What is she supposed to talk about if she can't talk about her very own basketball team? I mean, I understand she got other things to talk about, but of course, the Indiana Fever are going to be a source of content for her, for any player. Any player in this league or any other league, whatever professional sport and or team they're involved with, they're going to talk about that stuff on their podcast. They just are. Now, you could argue whether or not any athlete that's active should have a podcast. That's an argument that could be had, I guess. She's not saying anything she's not allowed to say.
She's not stupid. She should give it a rest and stop talking about what goes on in the Fever locker room. She's doing it for podcast clips. Listen, this criticism right here, it totally exposes the real agenda. These people don't want transparency. They don't want actual insights from someone who's actually there. They want carefully managed PR statements that say absolutely nothing. Why? Because real, honest information messes up the narratives they've invested so much in. When Sophie confirms the offense didn't always run through Clark, it validates criticisms of the coaching staff. When she says a generational talent should control the system, it really exposes the front office's failure to maximize their best player. When she speaks freely about basketball decisions, it makes everyone else's speculation look exactly like what it is: uninformed guessing. The people demanding she stays silent aren't protecting Caitlin Clark. They're actually protecting their own relevance.
Some things they probably want out since everyone was complaining all season. I mean, it's crazy. That is crazy. She's a clout-chasing mid-player, more concerned with building a brand and could care less about playing. I would argue she should have won the Sixth Person of the Year. Love Sophie and her outspokenness, but dang, girl, at least give Cece a heads up. If you're going to talk about her like this, she's just talking about the offense of the team, and then it's run through Caitlin Clark. At times, I think there's times where it's pretty obvious they haven't done that. Now, it would just prompt more questions for Caitlin Clark, unwarranted.
Now, let's talk about the most revealing criticism of all. Someone wrote, "Love Sophie, but Dan girl, at least give Cece a heads up if you're going to talk about her." Give her a heads up about what, though? About saying the offense should run through her? About calling her a generational talent? About comparing her to LeBron? These people genuinely want Sophie to send a written request before complimenting her own teammate. They're demanding she asks permission to state obvious basketball analysis. This, my friends, is the control mechanism in full effect. They want every single conversation about Caitlin Clark filtered through gatekeepers who decide what's okay to say and who determine what narrative best serves their own interests. And when someone breaks from that control, they attack. They demand compliance. They threaten consequences.
She's one of them. Because she's the only one I can actually count on dropping a bionic elbow if they try to clothesline Caitlin Clark when she's on the floor. Again, anybody watch the video of them physically restraining Sophie when Marina Maybury bashed her to the ground? Sophie tried to get to her ass. That's wild. I was like, okay, well, yeah, we can talk about the offense. And then I started reading all the comments around the interweb, and I was like, wow, okay.
She's a cloud-chasing mid-player, more concerned with building a brand than playing. There it is. That's the real resentment. Sophie Cunningham built a media presence. She started a podcast. She's creating opportunities for herself way beyond just basketball, and certain people absolutely despise her for it. They want players to stay in their lane. They want them to be grateful for whatever scraps the league throws their way. They want them to never, ever leverage their platform for personal gain. But Sophie refused that limited role. She understood something most WNBA players still haven't figured out. You can't just wait for the league to make you relevant. You have to build your own audience. You have to create your own content. You have to control your own narrative. And she's done exactly that, all while being one of the most productive players on the team.
That's a little interesting. That's wild. That's wild. Tell me in the comments section, should she send a literal a written request to everybody she's ever going to make comments about on her podcast? I assure you, if it was my podcast, I'm not doing that. So, I mean, I don't know why I would ever expect anybody else to do that. That's just not how it's done. It's an unreasonable expectation. I mean, you have no idea what's going to be talked about. You know? Because it was her partner that started down this conversation, by the way. And that's fine. If he wants to ask about those kind of things, he should be able to. You're on a podcast with a WNBA player. Shit. If I was on there, I'd be asking all kinds of things. Isn't that sort of the point?
And get this. Let's talk about what actually went down when violence was aimed at Caitlin Clark. Remember when Sinead Carter blindsided her with that cheap shot? Cameras caught Sophie being physically restrained. She was literally trying to get to Carter. Her own teammates had to hold her back. Then when Marina Mabrey got into it with Clark, same thing. Sophie went after her and had to be pulled away by multiple people. This happened over and over throughout the season. Other players disappeared. Aaliyah Boston stood there looking confused. The rest of the roster just let Clark absorb punishment without any real consequences. Sophie Cunningham was the only one ready to throw hands. The only teammate willing to risk a suspension to protect the franchise player, and now, those very same people who criticized the team for not protecting Clark are attacking the one player who actually did.
Sophie should shut up and stop the locker room and strategy talk. Her podcast is ridiculous. I mean, wow. Well, yeah, is this Fever fans? Because these people are talking like they're Fever fans. I can tell you, I can write down the players that I want back.
Back on this team, her podcast is ridiculous. Sophie should shut up and stop the locker room and strategy talk. This reveals the true breaking point. They don't want transparency. They don't want real insights from people who are actually in the building. They want carefully managed PR statements that reveal absolutely nothing, because real information completely messes up the narratives they've invested so much into. When Sophie confirms the offense didn't always run through Clark, it validates criticisms of the coaching staff. When she says a generational talent should control the system, it exposes the front office's failure to get the most out of their best asset. When she speaks freely about basketball decisions, it makes everyone else's speculation look exactly like what it is: uninformed guessing. The people demanding she stays silent aren't protecting Caitlin Clark. They're just protecting their own relevance.
Till next time.
Thanks for watching the show. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Be sure to tune in next time on Black and White Sports.
So what's the reasonable expectation here, really? Should Sophie send written requests before every podcast episode? Should she submit topics for approval? Should she only talk about the Fever in pre-approved sound bites? That's just not how media works. That's not how podcasts function. Her co-host asked a basketball question about a basketball player on her basketball team. She gave an honest basketball answer. The fact that this triggered such extreme backlash tells you everything you need to know about the current state of WNBA discourse. Truth has become controversial. Honesty is now betrayal. And simply supporting your teammate makes you a target. The league wonders why it struggles to grow, but then look what happens when someone actually tries to create authentic content. The Sophie Cunningham situation truly exposes the real battle happening around Caitlin Clark and the Fever. It's not about basketball anymore. It's about who controls the narrative. It's about who gets to decide what's acceptable to say. And it's about who gets to profit from the whole Clark phenomenon. Sophie committed the ultimate sin. She spoke freely without permission. She gave honest analysis without checking if it served someone else's agenda. And for that, both haters and supposed fans want her gone. But here's what they're totally missing. The Fever desperately need players like Sophie Cunningham, teammates who will physically protect Clark on the court and then defend her publicly off. The big question now is whether the front office has the courage to bring her back, or if they'll just cave to the mob demanding silence. What happens next is going to tell us everything about where this franchise is truly headed.